Hey everyone, welcome back to Upside Down Data. Today I wanted to make a quick video about the Silicon Valley Bank collapse and the effect that had on USDC. So if you're probably aware, if you've been following the markets, the one of the banks that has been used by a lot of tech companies, Silicon Valley Bank, recently collapsed. Basically, it has now been taken over by the FDIC, and they're going to be either looking for a buyer for it or basically end up liquidating the assets in the bank. Now, the reason this is relevant to crypto is that it turned out that Circle, the company behind the stablecoin USDC, had a decent amount of their cash reserve at Silicon Valley Bank. They had about $3.3 billion there. And so what that ended up doing is when this whole fiasco kind of played out, when it became clear that Silicon Valley Bank was going under, that created a lot of fear in the market. People wondering, with these companies that had, money with that bank, Circle being one of them, would they get any of that money back? In the case of Circle, the market cap of USDC was around the ballpark of 40 billion when this happened. If they suddenly have a $3.3 billion shortfall, is that going to create a problem? Are they now, insolvent? Is there going to be a big bank run that ultimately then leads USDC to going to zero? And so what you saw in the market kind of coming off of that was a big depegging of the value of USDC. Basically, people kind of fled out of the asset. They tried to get into other crypto assets or just out of crypto or into other stablecoins. And so there's this pretty sizable depeg. So this is Kraken here, what we're looking at here. It went all the way down to 87 cents here. Really depends a bit on the exchange how low it went. Gemini went all the way down to about 82 cents. Binance versus USDT went down to about 88 cents or 88 cents in USDT version. I think Binance US actually collapsed way lower. I think it wicked down to closer to 33 cents. So really different across exchanges, but generally speaking, a pretty big depegging of the value. Now, as I record this, things are looking like they're starting to stabilize. So in Kraken, we're back up to 97, almost 98 cents. Gemini, it's almost back up to parity with the dollar. And on Binance, now Tether has actually been trading a bit of a premium. So it's actually here a little bit lower. But, generally speaking, things are moving back upwards. And I think one of the reasons why this has been happening, in kind of the more recent time as I record this in the afternoon on the 11th, is that Circle put out a blog post that they were basically just going to talk about what's been going on, what the situation is. And one of the things I think that the market probably picked up on was this last little paragraph here in their blog post, which just basically says that Circle, by law, is basically required to essentially stand behind their stablecoin. And so one of the things that they say that they will do is use corporate resources involving external capital raises if necessary to plug any hole that might emerge from Silicon Valley Bank. And, in an environment right now where interest rates are very high, U.S. Treasuries, short duration Treasuries are between 4 and 5%, kind of in that ballpark right now. And 77% of Circle's reserves are in short-dated Treasuries. That's a lot of money that you're making, putting billions of dollars into those bonds, into those Treasury notes. And so it seems reasonable to think that Circle has money to help fill that hole. And again, it's not even clear how much of a hole there's going to be. That's one of the things that a lot of people have been talking about, that with Silicon Valley Bank, it's very possible that it could get bought out and then all the liabilities get assumed by another bank, then everyone's just whole and it's not even a problem. But even if it does end up being liquidated, it's unlikely that that entire 3.3 billion is a loss. And in fact, the percentage of recovery could be pretty decent. And so the actual potential hole in the Circle reserve is probably quite a bit lower than 3.3 billion, according to some people. Now, obviously, take that with a grain of salt. And, obviously, everything I'm saying here is not financial advice. You should be making your own opinions about the situation, where you think things might be going. But my kind of opinion, or my gut reaction when I saw this happening in the market, was that it was the market probably getting a little bit ahead of itself, probably panicking a little bit too much, and that things probably weren't going to be as bleak as everyone thought. I think a lot of people were thinking this could just be UST all over again, where we go to zero in just a couple days. I think that's probably unlikely to play out. So it's still, early. So nothing is definitive, nothing's official at this point. And so it's certainly possible, that USDC could depeg again or could fall down further. Anything's possible. But it does seem, like things are looking certainly more favorable than something like UST was. And so if I had to pick a side, I would probably think that USDC is going to recover from this. But again, not financial advice, it's just my opinion. Let's go ahead and talk about how that's impacted broader markets also, though. So let's talk about Bitcoin. So, Bitcoin back yesterday on the 10th had gone all the way down to about 19.5K. We've now bounced off of that. One of the interesting things about USDC is that's actually probable, or at least plausible, that people were exiting out of it into other assets, and Bitcoin being one of the assets that's probably seen as a little bit of the volatile crypto assets probably seen as being the safest, relatively speaking, actually did probably get a lot of inflows based on that. And so you can see that Bitcoin went all the way up to a bit over 21K, now trading at around 20.6K as I record this. But we did catch a decent bounce. And what I want to talk about is, where might the market go next if we have a situation where USDC ends up being fine? Let's imagine, the best possible case scenario where Silicon Valley Bank ends up getting bought out, or the liability is assumed by other bank, and so then everything is made whole and there's no real issue here whatsoever. Are we just going to see a continuation of this drawdown that we've been seeing, or might this actually be kind of a local bottom that, a lot of this might have been going into the fears of kind of bank collapses? But now that that's happened, is this kind of maybe turning into a bear trap that could reverse? So I want to talk a little bit about the possibility. So certainly sentiment has gotten pretty skewed in the negative direction. We really saw people getting maybe a little bit ahead of themselves and how fearful, and I think you see that also potentially with USDC and the reaction there, that potentially people are kind of getting a bit ahead of themselves with some of these Depeg selling, at 80 cents USDC in some cases, where that may or may not have been the most prudent thing to do. It might have been a bit of a panicked move. And so could we see a short-term return, especially as people maybe have been shorting the market, shorts getting trapped and squeezed back to the upside? I think it's a possibility. One of the things I wanted to note, if we just go over to the website, PolarityDigital.io. This is the site that we've launched in collaboration with Jay over at Daily Crypto Analysis. One of the things that I had mentioned in previous videos, and what I'll just mention again, is we had seen our one indicator, the trend confidence indicator, start to get really bearish on crypto about a week or so ago, really starting to turn red across the board, which was a sign of weakness and that things might turn more bleak. Now that's actually ended up being what played out. But what's important to watch with the TCI is that even if it's down in the negatives, one of the things you can look for is, does a reversal get put in on the TCI level? So I'm showing you here Ethereum kind of zoomed into more recent price action. And just to give some examples, you'll notice that when you catch these bottoms on the TCI, that tends to be kind of local bottoms for the asset. Not 100% of the time, but often time. When you catch these kind of big reversals, that tends to mark at least local bottoms. And you'll note that we are hooking back up a little bit on the TCI right here. If that continues, and if the TCI continues to trend back to the upside, that might be additional evidence that we could look at to say that maybe the bottom, or the local bottom, is likely near. So I just want to mention that even though things still look very dire, if you just look at the absolute levels of the TCI, it's also important to go under the hood and look at the trend. Because if you start noticing the TCI starting to trend back to the upside, even if prices just continue to go sideways, that actually would be a potentially bullish sign, something to keep an eye on for sure. So this is an ongoing situation. We're going to have to watch it play out, and I think we're really not going to get a more clear answer until Monday about what's going on with Circle, though it's possible something will get announced over the weekend and that will resolve things. I think for now, things are trending back up, but as I said, it's still too early to think that we're necessarily out of the woods and that nothing worse can happen. But, hopefully if the peg can at least, start to slowly move back to the upside, if the panic resides, that would lower the probability of a full-on bank run happening unless some new news came out that created new panic in the market about USDC or, the state of the reserves that are backing it. But I think also with Circle coming out and, obviously, and saying that they basically have a legal obligation to try to, backstop USDC to the best of their abilities, hopefully this will turn out for the best. So again, not financial advice. Make your own opinions, assess risk as you see fit. But from where I'm standing, this is certainly not UST. And so I think a lot of the fear was probably a little bit overblown with USDC. This could age horribly, depending what plays out over the next couple of days. But my base case is that, I'd be more surprised of USDC failing than of repegging. I think, in my opinion, the probability is more of it kind of resolving itself in a more reasonable way rather than the bearish way. But I'm certainly not ascribing 100% probability to it recovering. Anything can happen. We're going to have to watch this very carefully. Just want to make this quick video to kind of talk about what's been going on, what I think, and some things that you can watch in terms of, if we do get a positive resolution, what can you look for to maybe think that a rebound could happen? We could actually see crypto prices kind of start to recover from this drawdown that we've been seeing. All right, if you like the content, remember to subscribe to the channel, give the video a like and follow us on Twitter, and go check out claritydigital.io to check out some of our models for yourself.